this is Gretchen Menn, the guitar player for Zepparella, and in this video I'm going to be showing you the riffs for When the Levee Breaks, both in standard and in the alternate tuning that was used for the recording. Little history of this song for me is I had actually always played it in standard tuning, and I'll get a little bit deeper into the reasons for that in the third video of this series, but suffice it to say that it was on the drive to the studio where we actually recorded the video for When the Levee Breaks that it kind of hit me like, oh, maybe I should record that in the actual open tuning, because I wasn't going to have to deal with all of the futzing around that retuning means for live playing. So we got to the studio and I really quickly looked up online like what tuning it was in, and I relearned it and found it was actually really easy in the open tuning. So when it came time to do this video, I sort of thought, oh, which tuning should I show it to you guys in? And then I thought, why choose? I'll show it in both tunings, and then you guys can decide what is best for you. First, a disclaimer. There are so many ways to play this. There are valid ways to play this, and I would cite any live Led Zeppelin as precedent for taking huge liberties is perfectly okay with Zeppelin. And depending on how you're learning it, depending on the type of player you are, the type of guitar you have, you may find that something like this or something very different from this is what translates best to what you want to do. So I'm just really showing how I do it, and I'll be giving some reasons for certain departures that I've done. In this video, I'm going to go over 4 main riffs. One which I call the short riff. It's a 1-measure phrase. One which I call the longer riff, which is a 2-measure phrase. It's basically an outgrowth of the short riff. Some chords that you play with a slide that goes into a bridge. And that's that. I'll show it to you first in the open tuning. You're really not going to use your lower 2 strings, but it's an open like F tuning. So you're going to tune your D string to C. I'm sure you have a tuner, but that's just where I am right now. Your G string to F, your B string to A, and your E string to C. If you are set up for more standard playing, not slide playing, it's going to mean your strings are going to feel pretty floppy. That's part of the reason I don't use it in this tuning live. But let's go over the riffs. I'm going to first show you the short riff, meaning it's the 1-measure phrase that happens. There are 4 of them at the very top of the song. So we're going to start on the 3rd fret. I'm going to be talking fret numbers rather than note names, just because the open tuning, it's too much recalculating. We're going to be on the 3rd fret on the D and the G strings, which have been retuned. But your normal G and D string, you're going to be pulling off from the 3rd fret to the open strings. You can do that also either with your first finger alone or your first 2 fingers. I probably, if I did this in the open tuning, would probably aim for the first finger. I just find that more comfortable, but whatever is best for you. So 3rd fret, pull off to the open, and then you're going to hit the open strings again. So, and then same thing. 3rd fret to open, 3rd fret, open, 5th fret. So slowly that's. This next one is what I call the longer riff. It's just an extension of the shorter riff. It's 2 measures. The first measure of it is really just going between the 3rd fret, barring at the on the D and the G strings, to the open strings, and then the second half of that longer riff is just the same thing as the shorter riff. So you've got 2 of the main building blocks now that happen under the verses. I want to mention one thing that I do slightly differently for live playing, and it's what I'm showing you right here, is there are, I think, I'm going by what I hear in certain transcriptions, sometimes some upper notes. So that's actually just with your third finger on the 5th fret of the D string, your second finger on the 4th fret of the G string, and your first finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. So you can play also the riff like, but the reason I don't add those upper notes, well, one is I'm not in the open tuning for live, but also live you're dealing with trying to create space for the harmonica and for the vocal. And so adding those extra notes is fine and dandy when you can be recording and mixing it properly. But for the live performance, I just don't need to add extra notes, and I give that space to the vocal and to the harmonica. To actually play this song all the way through, you have to be wearing a slide the whole time. I'll talk a little bit more about slide technique in the second video, but suffice it to say for now, put on your slide, get used to playing those first 2 riffs with the slide on your finger. I wear it on my pinky. But let's take a look now at the next series of chords that happen with the slide, and it happens in between sort of these longer and shorter riffs, between verses and throughout the harmonica solos too. So you're going to start at the 6th fret, and you're going to slide up to the 8th fret, and then the 10th. So that sounds like. So again. And honestly, I don't think you need to be overly persnickety about starting at the 6th fret. I think you can start wherever you feel like it. And then that's the 5th fret. Again, we're just here on the D and the G strings. So double stop between 5th fret, 3rd fret, 5th fret again, open. So, and then that repeats. And then the whole thing repeats. In this, you're going to be hitting chords and double stops back and forth. The double stops are the D and the G strings. So, and then 12th fret first, and then again the open strings. 7th fret, and then 5th fret. 7th. And then you're going to bar just the top 2 strings at the 10th and 12th fret and use those open strings. This is When the Levee Breaks in standard tuning, which is the way I actually do it. Now we're going to be at the 1st fret on the D and G strings, which this time actually are tuned to D and G. And I play with my 1st fret and then move to my 2nd and 3rd fingers on the A and D strings. So would be the first, 2 double stops. So that's just going back and forth between barring at the 1st fret and the 3rd, and then the 3rd position with your 2nd and 3rd fingers. So. And then 1st finger on the D and G strings at the 3rd fret. That's your short riff, the 1 measure phrase. Again. Now the long riff, it's just, again, the short riff with just 1 measure ahead of it. So that sounds like. Now the part with the chords with the slide, you're going to slide between up to the 6th fret, up to the 8th fret. And the difference here is don't use your high E string, because instead of give you, which is clearly not correct. So we're going to go, and you're right there, you're picking your D, G, and B strings. and then 3rd fret, 1st fret, 3rd fret, and then 3rd fret on the A and D strings. So that's, again, D and G strings, and now A and D strings. And then that whole thing repeats. This next section that I'm calling the bridge is the one that needed to be adapted the most in order to make it playable in standard tuning with a slide on your fingers. But the way I do it, to me, it works, it's playable, and I feel like it sounds correct enough that I'm okay with it. But it is a bit of a compromise. 3rd position with your 1st finger on the F, so that's the 3rd fret of the D string, your 2nd finger on the C, which is the 5th fret of the G string. And then the reason for this spacing is so you can slide up on that 2nd finger. I mean, you could finger it like that, but I prefer like this because then that 2nd finger slides you up to the next chord. So there you are at the 8th fret with your 1st finger on the C of the E string, which is the 8th fret, your 3rd finger on the A of the B string, which is the 10th fret, and your 2nd finger on the F of the G string, which is also the 10th fret. And then same thing here on the 3rd fret. So it's the same chord shape. And then 1st fret, 3rd, 6th, 8th. And that's your bridge. Thanks for hanging with me, and I'm going to leave you with a writing assignment should you choose to take it. You just learned some of Led Zeppelin's awesome song, one of my favorite ones, and actually the song that got me into Led Zeppelin. And if you don't already have your muses screaming at you to try something of your own, I'll give you a couple suggestions. Take it, leave it, change them around, combine them. If you're not used to playing in an open tuning, mess around in that open tuning. Try to come up with something that's different, maybe even in a different meter. For me, a lot of times if I'm referencing a track or a song and it starts to sound too much like it, changing something metrically, meaning if when the Levee Breaks is in 4/4, try setting a drum, like if you have a drum machine or get to play with a drummer, even better. Try to do something in 5/8 or 3/4, just a different meter or a different tempo. That can help differentiate the two and maybe open up new ideas. Another approach, and if you're in standard tuning, is you could take maybe some of the emotional intention of the piece and come up with something maybe in a different key. But try to see about maybe coming up with something that feels like heavy and weighty and kind of profound, the way when the Levee Breaks does. It doesn't even have to be, like I said, in the same key or even in the same register of the guitar, but check out trying to capture some of that spirit in something that's your own. Finally, if you want to get technical about it, try playing around with the slide and writing, say, a 2 to 4 measure riff that incorporates the slide into some portion of that riff. So try any of these, none of these, all of these, or combinations of these, and I would love to hear what you do. So if you do something, tag me in it, upload it, get it to me somehow, and I will see you in the next video for the solo section.